The world is still asleep. The only movement is the gentle sway of trees in the early morning breeze. But in a matter of seconds, the quiet stillness will be shattered. Behind the wheel is 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla. Beside her, in the passenger seat, is her on-again, off-again boyfriend, 20-year-old Dominic Russo. In the back seat, their friend, 19-year-old Davion Flanagan. They're young, they're out late, perhaps after a night of partying. But this isn't a joyride. This is a trajectory towards tragedy. 100 miles per hour, straight into a brick wall. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Dominic and Davion were pronounced dead at the scene. Mackenzie, miraculously, survived. She was transported to Southwest General Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. But as investigators from the Strongsville Police Department began to piece together the events leading up to the crash, a chilling truth emerged. This was no tragic accident. This was a deliberate act, a calculated decision that ended 2 young lives. What drove Mackenzie Shirilla to commit such a horrific act? Was it a moment of madness? A desperate act of revenge? Or something far more disturbing? To understand this tragedy, we need to go back to the beginning, to unravel the tangled web of relationships, secrets, and lies that led to that fateful morning in Strongsville, Ohio. Mackenzie and Dominic's relationship was intense, passionate, and, at times, volatile. They were the kind of couple that couldn't keep their hands off each other one moment, and then be embroiled in a fiery argument the next. Their friends described their relationship as a roller coaster, full of dramatic ups and downs. But beneath the surface, there were cracks in their relationship. Mackenzie was known to be possessive and jealous. Dominic, on the other hand, was growing increasingly frustrated with her controlling behavior. Their arguments became more frequent, more heated. In the weeks leading up to the crash, their relationship reached a breaking point. They fought constantly. They broke up, then got back together, then broke up again. It was a toxic cycle, fueled by their intense emotions and their inability to let go. On the night of the crash, Mackenzie, Dominic, and Davion had been out with friends. They were drinking, they were partying, they were trying to have a good time. But the tension between Mackenzie and Dominic was palpable. Their friends could sense that something was wrong. As the night wore on, the situation escalated. Mackenzie and Dominic argued again, this time more explosively than ever before. Witnesses reported seeing them shouting at each other in the parking lot. What happened next would shock the community and leave 2 families devastated. Mackenzie Shirilla, in a fit of rage, got behind the wheel of her car with Dominic and Davion as passengers. She sped off into the night, her anger and desperation propelling her towards a tragic and irreversible decision. In the next part of our investigation, we'll delve deeper into the events of that fateful night. We'll examine the evidence, analyze the crash data, and try to understand what drove Mackenzie Shirilla to commit this unthinkable crime. Mackenzie Shirilla and Dominic Russo. They were the picture-perfect high school couple. He was a star athlete, she was a popular cheerleader. They were inseparable, their love a whirlwind of passion and intensity. Their relationship played out on social media, a public display of affection for all to see. They were the envy of their friends, the couple everyone wanted to be. But behind the idyllic facade, a darker reality was taking shape. Those close to the couple noticed a change. The fights became more frequent, the reconciliations less convincing. Mackenzie, friends said, was becoming increasingly possessive, her jealousy a suffocating force in their relationship. Dominic, once smitten, was starting to feel trapped. He craved freedom, space to explore his own identity. But Mackenzie's grip on him tightened, her love morphing into something closer to obsession. Anthony said, it was like she couldn't breathe without him. She was always checking his phone, accusing him of cheating. It was exhausting just to watch. Dom started to seem really unhappy. The weeks leading up to the crash were a tumultuous period. Breakups and makeups became a recurring pattern. Their relationship was a toxic dance, fueled by passion, insecurity, and a refusal to let go. Just days before the crash, Mackenzie posted a cryptic message on Instagram. "I'll never let you go," it read, accompanied by a photo of her and Dominic kissing at prom. Was it a simple expression of love, or a chilling foreshadowing of what was to come? On the night of July 30th, 2022, Mackenzie and Dominic, along with their friend Davion Flanagan, went out. They started at a house party on Sprague Road in Strongsville, and later moved to a bar called the Brew Garden. They were young, they were seemingly carefree, but a closer look reveals a tension simmering beneath the surface. Mackenzie and Dominic are rarely seen together in photos and videos from that night, their smiles strained. Witnesses at the Brew Garden later recounted that Mackenzie and Dominic were arguing throughout the night. Their voices, raised in anger, cut through the music and laughter. It was clear that their relationship was on the verge of imploding. As the night wore on, the argument escalated. Mackenzie, fueled by alcohol and jealousy, accused Dominic of flirting with another girl. Dominic, tired of the constant accusations, stormed out of the bar. Mackenzie, consumed by a desperate need to control Dominic, followed him. She got behind the wheel of her car, with Dominic and Davion as passengers. What happened next remains a mystery, a chilling sequence of events that would end in tragedy. Was this a crime of passion, a spontaneous act of rage fueled by jealousy and heartbreak, or was there something more calculated, more deliberate at play? In the next part of our investigation, we'll delve deeper into the events leading up to the crash, examining the evidence and searching for answers to this devastating mystery. The night began like many others for this group of friends. A house party, music blasting, laughter echoing through the rooms. Mackenzie, Dominic, and Davion were there, along with a dozen or so other teenagers and young adults. On the surface, it was a typical summer night, full of youthful energy. But beneath the surface, tensions were already simmering. Mackenzie and Dominic, despite being at the same party, were barely interacting. Witnesses later recalled seeing them arguing in hushed tones on the back patio, their body language tense and distant. Around 11 p.m., the group decided to move the party to a local bar called the Brew Garden on Pearl Road. They piled into cars, the mood shifting from excitement to unease. The argument between Mackenzie and Dominic, it seemed, was far from over. At the bar, the tension between Mackenzie and Dominic continued to escalate. They were seen arguing again, this time more openly, their voices raised in anger. Other patrons began to notice the escalating conflict, some even shooting video with their phones. Witnesses later reported that Mackenzie accused Dominic of flirting with a girl sitting at the bar. Whether the accusation was true or not, it fueled Mackenzie's already volatile jealousy. The argument reached a boiling point. Dominic, unable to take the constant accusations and drama, stormed out of the bar, leaving Mackenzie behind. Fueled by a cocktail of alcohol, jealousy, and a desperate need to control Dominic, Mackenzie made a fateful decision. She left the bar, got into her car, and sped off into the night. What happened next remained shrouded in mystery. Did Mackenzie intend to confront Dominic? Was she trying to catch up to him? Or was something far more sinister taking shape in her mind? Around 1:30 a.m., Mackenzie's car was captured on surveillance footage speeding down Alameda Parkway, a deserted industrial road. The car was traveling at an alarming speed, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a predator on the hunt. In the car with Mackenzie were Dominic and Davion. Were they aware of the danger they were in? Were they trying to reason with Mackenzie? Or were they simply caught in the crossfire of her escalating rage? As the car approached the intersection, Mackenzie made a sharp right turn onto Progress Drive, heading straight towards a brick wall. The car accelerated, the engine roaring. There was no attempt to brake, no sign of hesitation. In those final moments, what was going through Mackenzie's mind? Was it a moment of madness? A desperate act of revenge? Or a cold, calculated decision to end it all? As the night wore on, tensions escalated. What happened in those final moments before the crash? We'll delve deeper into the mystery in the next part of our investigation. I know this was a heavy one, but these stories need to be told. If you're feeling it, give this video a thumbs up and share it to spread awareness. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our true crime community. For those of you who've been here a while, you know I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around. The scene at the crash site was one of utter devastation. The car, a crumpled heap of metal, lay embedded in the brick wall of the Plidco building at 19700 Alameda Parkway. Inside, the bodies of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan were found lifeless, their dreams and futures extinguished in an instant. Mackenzie Shirilla, the driver, was found unconscious but alive, trapped in the wreckage. Her injuries were surprisingly minor considering the severity of the crash. She was transported to Southwest General Hospital for treatment, but the evidence inside the car, and the lack of evidence outside it, told a chilling story. An animation recreates the crash based on data from the car's Event Data Recorder (EDR), commonly known as the black box. The animation shows the car speeding down Alameda Parkway, the sudden sharp right turn onto Progress Drive, and the violent impact with the brick wall. A voice note explains the technical details of the crash. The data from the car's EDR is irrefutable. The car was traveling at 100.1 miles per hour just seconds before impact. There was no braking, no attempt to avoid the collision. The steering wheel input indicates a deliberate turn towards the wall. This was a deliberate act. The investigators from the Strongsville Police Department meticulously documented every detail of the crash. They collected evidence, took measurements, and interviewed witnesses. Their goal was to reconstruct the final moments inside the car, to understand what led to this tragic outcome. The evidence suggested a chaotic scene. There were signs of a struggle, indicating that Dominic and Davion may have tried to stop Mackenzie or regain control of the car, but their efforts were in vain. Toxicology reports revealed that Mackenzie had THC in her system, exceeding the legal limit for driving in Ohio. The investigation also uncovered a disturbing pattern of behavior in Mackenzie's past. She had a history of reckless driving, including a previous incident where she had driven at high speeds with Dominic in the car, captured on a Snapchat video. Friends and family members described Mackenzie as possessive and controlling, particularly in her relationship with Dominic. Was this tragedy the culmination of a long-simmering obsession? The investigation team, determined to uncover the truth, turned their attention to the car's event data recorder. This device, a silent witness to the tragedy, held the key to understanding what happened in those final moments. The EDR data revealed a chilling truth about Mackenzie's actions that night, a truth that would shock the community and send shockwaves through the courtroom. What secrets did the EDR reveal? Was this a tragic accident, a moment of madness, or a cold-blooded act of murder? We'll uncover the truth in the next part of our investigation. The first responders arrived to a scene of unimaginable carnage. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and the lifeless bodies of two young men. But amidst the tragedy, their training kicked in. Every detail, no matter how small, could be a clue. The investigation into the crash that claimed the lives of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan was underway. The Strongsville Police Department, led by Detective Sergeant Sean Kafer, faced a daunting task. Was this a tragic accident, or something more sinister? The physical evidence at the scene painted a grim picture. The car's speed, the lack of skid marks, the direct impact with the wall, all pointed towards a deliberate act. Witnesses were interviewed, their accounts piecing together the events leading up to the crash. Friends described the volatile relationship between Mackenzie and Dominic, the escalating arguments, and the growing tension. But no one could have predicted the tragic outcome. The investigation turned its focus to Mackenzie Shirilla. Her history of reckless driving, her social media posts hinting at a troubled mind, and the witness accounts all raised red flags. But was there enough evidence to prove that she intentionally caused the crash? The investigators dug deeper, obtaining search warrants for Mackenzie's phone and social media accounts. They scoured her digital footprint, searching for any clues that might shed light on her state of mind and her intentions that night. The digital evidence was damning. Text messages revealed a pattern of controlling behavior and threats towards Dominic. Social media posts showed a fascination with dark themes and a disturbing lack of remorse in the days following the crash. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. The physical evidence, the witness testimonies, and the digital footprint all pointed towards a deliberate act. But the investigators needed one final piece of evidence to solidify their case. The editor, a silent witness to the tragedy, held a wealth of information about the car's speed, braking, and steering in the moments leading up to the crash. Its data would provide the final, irrefutable proof of Mackenzie's actions. The analysis of the EDR data revealed a chilling truth. A truth that would shatter any remaining doubt about Mackenzie Shirilla's intentions that night. But one piece of evidence would change everything. Stay tuned to uncover the shocking revelation that sealed Mackenzie Shirilla's fate. 1 year after the devastating crash that claimed the lives of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan, Mackenzie Shirilla faced a judge, not a jury, charged with 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide. The trial, presided over by Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, no relation to the victim, was a tense and emotional affair, with the weight of 2 young lives hanging in the balance. The prosecution, led by Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley, presented a compelling case. They argued that Mackenzie, fueled by jealousy and a desire for revenge, deliberately drove her car into the wall, intending to kill Dominic and Davion. They presented a mountain of evidence to support their claim. The black box data was particularly damning. It showed that Mackenzie had accelerated to over 100 miles per hour just seconds before the crash, with no attempt to brake or swerve. The data painted a clear picture of a deliberate and intentional act. Witnesses took the stand, recounting their observations of Mackenzie's volatile relationship with Dominic, her erratic behavior, and her fascination with speed and danger. Friends and family members painted a picture of a troubled young woman, consumed by jealousy and a need for control. The defense, led by James McDonnell, argued that the crash was a tragic accident, a result of reckless driving rather than intentional murder. They claimed that Mackenzie, distraught over her failing relationship with Dominic, had simply lost control of the car. The defense attempted to portray Mackenzie as a victim of circumstance, a young woman overwhelmed by grief and heartbreak. They emphasized her lack of a criminal record and her remorse for the tragic outcome. The trial stretched on for days, the courtroom filled with tension and emotion. The prosecution and defense presented their cases, each side vying to sway the judge. The fate of Mackenzie Shirilla hung in the balance. Mackenzie's testimony was particularly dramatic. She tearfully recounted her love for Dominic, her devastation at his death, and her inability to remember the events leading up to the crash. But her claims of amnesia were met with skepticism by the prosecution. As the trial drew to a close, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The judge had heard all the evidence, the testimonies, and the legal arguments. Now it was time for her to decide Mackenzie Shirilla's fate. Would she believe the prosecution's claim that Mackenzie intentionally caused the crash, resulting in the deaths of Dominic and Davion? Or would she accept the defense's argument that this was a tragic accident, a momentary lapse in judgment with devastating consequences? The judge was about to deliver her verdict, a verdict that would determine whether Mackenzie Shirilla would walk free or spend the rest of her life behind bars. Stay tuned to hear the verdict and the shocking aftermath of this emotional trial. In the courtroom, the atmosphere is thick with tension. Mackenzie Shirilla stands before Judge Russo, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her parents sit behind her, their faces etched with worry and apprehension. The families of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan are also present, their eyes filled with a mix of grief and anticipation. After weeks of testimony, evidence, and legal arguments, the moment of truth had arrived. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, who had presided over the trial with a stern but fair demeanor, was ready to deliver her verdict. The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on the judge. Judge Russo said, "Mackenzie Shirilla, in this case, the court finds that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty of 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide." Guilty. The word hung heavy in the air. Mackenzie Shirilla, the young woman who had once been the envy of her peers, was now a convicted murderer. The judge, in her closing remarks, made it clear that this was no accident, no momentary lapse in judgment. Judge Russo continues speaking, her voice firm and resolute. She recounts the evidence presented during the trial, emphasizing the car's speed, the lack of braking, and the chilling black box data. Judge Russo said, "This was not reckless driving. This was murder. She had a mission, and she executed it with precision. The decision was death." The judge's words were a stark reminder of the horrific nature of the crime. Mackenzie Shirilla, driven by jealousy and a desire for revenge, had intentionally taken the lives of 2 young men. Her actions had shattered families and left a community reeling in shock and disbelief. The sentencing phase of the trial was equally emotional. The families of the victims delivered heart-wrenching impact statements, describing the devastating loss they had suffered and the profound impact the crime had had on their lives. According to Christine Russo, Dominic's mother, she said, "Dom and Davion were robbed of their futures, their hopes, and their dreams." Mackenzie showed no mercy on Dominic, nor did she on Davion. Only God at this time can have mercy on her soul. Judge Russo, after hearing the impact statements and considering the severity of the crime, handed down a sentence that would ensure Mackenzie Shirilla would spend a significant portion of her life behind bars. Judge Russo added that, "Mackenzie Shirilla, he hereby sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Life in prison, a harsh punishment, but one that many felt was justified given the gravity of the crime. Mackenzie Shirilla, at just 18 years old, would spend her youth and perhaps the rest of her life paying for her actions. Was justice served? Did the sentence fit the crime? It's a question that continues to be debated. But one thing is certain, the tragic case of Mackenzie Shirilla serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of reckless driving, jealousy, and unchecked rage. Two young lives, full of promise and potential, were cut short by a senseless act of violence. Their families and friends will forever bear the scars of their absence, and Mackenzie Shirilla, the young woman who caused their deaths, will forever carry the weight of her actions. The aftermath of the crash that claimed the lives of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan rippled through the community of Strongsville, Ohio, leaving a trail of shattered lives and unanswered questions. The families of the victims, once filled with laughter and love, were now grappling with unimaginable grief. Christine Russo, Dominic's mother, sits on a sofa, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice trembling as she speaks. It's a pain that never goes away. It's a hole in your heart that can never be filled. I wake up every morning and for a split second, I forget. Then the reality crashes down on me all over again. Dominic Russo, a talented athlete and beloved friend, had his whole life ahead of him. He dreamed of playing college baseball, of starting a family, of making a difference in the world. But his dreams were cruelly cut short. A group of young people gather around a makeshift memorial, flowers, candles, and photos of Davion Flanagan. His friends share stories, their laughter mixed with tears. Friend of Davion stated that Davion was the life of the party. He could make anyone laugh, even on their worst day. He had this infectious energy, this zest for life. It's hard to believe he's gone. Davion Flanagan, known for his infectious laugh and his kind heart, was a loyal friend and a beloved son. He had a passion for music and dreamed of becoming a DJ. His life, like Dominic's, was filled with promise and potential. The scene shifts back to Christine Russo. She sits in a rocking chair, a photo album in her lap. She flips through the pages, each photo a precious memory of her son. And she said, "I try to focus on the good times, the memories we shared, but it's hard. The pain is always there, lurking beneath the surface. I miss him so much." The families of the victims are left to pick up the pieces to navigate a world without their beloved sons. They attend grief counseling, they lean on each other for support, they try to find meaning in their loss. The impact of the crash extends beyond the families of the victims. The community of Strongsville, once a quiet and safe haven, is now grappling with a sense of vulnerability and loss. The crash serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of reckless choices. In the wake of the tragedy, the community has come together to support the families of the victims and to promote safe driving awareness. Scholarships have been established in Dominic and Davion's names, ensuring that their legacies will live on. The crash that claimed the lives of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan was a senseless tragedy, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of reckless choices. But amidst the grief and loss, there is also a glimmer of hope. The community of Strongsville, united in their sorrow, is determined to honor the memory of these two young men and to prevent such tragedies from happening again. As we reflect on this tragedy, let us remember the importance of cherishing our loved ones, of making responsible choices, and of finding strength in the face of adversity. The legacy of Dominic and Davion will live on, inspiring us to live our lives to the fullest and to make a positive impact on the world. In the next part of our investigation, we'll delve deeper into the mind of Mackenzie Shirilla, exploring the factors that may have contributed to her actions in the complex psychological aftermath of this tragedy. Mackenzie Shirilla, a young woman whose life took a tragic turn, leading to a devastating crime and a lifetime of consequences. But what drove her to commit such a horrific act? Was it a calculated act of revenge, a descent into madness fueled by mental health issues, or a momentary lapse of judgment in the heat of passion? The prosecution painted a picture of a jealous and controlling young woman, driven to murder by her obsession with Dominic Russo. They pointed to her history of reckless driving, her threatening text messages, and her chilling social media posts as evidence of her intent. But the defense argued that Mackenzie was a victim of circumstance, a young woman overwhelmed by grief and heartbreak. They claimed that the crash was an accident, a tragic consequence of reckless driving rather than a deliberate act of murder. Mackenzie herself maintained her innocence, claiming that she had no memory of the crash. She expressed remorse for the deaths of Dominic and Davion, but insisted that she never intended to harm them. They are according to an expert in forensic psychology and have studied the case extensively, said it's possible that Mackenzie was experiencing a dissociative episode at the time of the crash. This could explain her memory loss and her seemingly detached behavior in the aftermath. It's also possible that she was suffering from an underlying mental health condition that contributed to her actions. Could Mackenzie's actions be explained by a mental health condition? Was she truly unaware of what she was doing? Or was she a master manipulator, feigning amnesia to escape the consequences of her actions? The truth, as is often the case, is likely complex and multifaceted. Mackenzie Shirilla was a young woman with a troubled past, a volatile relationship, and perhaps underlying mental health issues. These factors, combined with her recklessness and her inability to control her emotions, may have culminated in the tragic events of that fateful night. What was going through Mackenzie's mind in those final moments before the crash? Was she consumed by rage, driven by a desire for revenge, or was she simply lost in a fog of despair, her actions a desperate cry for help? The answers to these questions may forever remain elusive, but as we delve deeper into the psychology of this complex case, we can gain a better understanding of the factors that contribute to such tragedies and the importance of seeking help for mental health issues. The case of Mackenzie Shirilla is a tragedy on many levels. 2 young lives were senselessly cut short, families were shattered, and a community was left reeling in shock and disbelief. But this story is more than just a tragic tale of reckless driving and heartbreak. It's a story that raises important questions about mental health, responsibility, and the consequences of our actions. Dominic, Russo, and Davion Flanagan were more than just victims in a tragic accident. They were sons, brothers, friends, and individuals with dreams and aspirations. Their lives were filled with promise and potential, cruelly cut short by a senseless act of violence. Mackenzie Shirilla, the young woman behind the wheel, will spend a significant portion of her life behind bars, paying for her actions. But her story is also a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions, reckless behavior, and the failure to seek help when struggling with mental health issues. This case highlights the importance of addressing mental health concerns, promoting responsible decision-making, and fostering healthy relationships. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. In the wake of this tragedy, the community of Strongsville has come together to support the families of the victims and to promote awareness of the dangers of reckless driving and mental health issues. Scholarships have been established in Dominic and Davion's names, ensuring that their legacies will live on and inspire others to make positive choices. The case of Mackenzie Shirilla is a story of loss, heartbreak, and the enduring power of the human spirit. It's a story that challenges us to reflect on our own lives, our relationships, and our choices. It's a story that reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for healing, growth, and positive change. As we conclude this exploration of the tragic case of Mackenzie Shirilla, let us remember the importance of compassion, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. Let us honor the memories of Dominic, Russo, and Davion Flanagan by living our lives to the fullest and striving to make a positive impact on the world. If you're interested in more compelling true crime stories, be sure to check out our other videos. We explore a wide range of cases from unsolved mysteries to shocking crimes that made headlines. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future uploads. You can also connect with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and discussions about true crime. We appreciate your support and look forward to exploring more fascinating cases with you in the future.